Have you ever wondered how love could change the fate of a kingdom? What if I told you that one woman, driven by desire, strategy, and the power of romance, managed to shake the very foundations of the ancient world? Her name was Cleopatra. But forget what you think you know. This isn't just a story of beauty or betrayal. This is a tale of passion, power, and politics, where every glance, every whisper, every kiss had the power to rewrite history. And tonight, I'm going to take you deep into the heart of one of the most captivating love stories ever told, the love of Cleopatra. Our story begins over 2,000 years ago, in the golden land of the Nile, in ancient Egypt. Cleopatra VII, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, was not just a queen, she was a force of nature, intelligent, charismatic, fluent in many languages, and incredibly well-educated. She knew how to command attention. But even more importantly, she knew how to use love as a weapon, as a shield, and as a crown. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian by blood. She was Macedonian Greek, a descendant of Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals. But she embraced Egyptian culture like no other ruler in her family had. She dressed as Isis, the goddess of motherhood and magic. She spoke the native language fluently. She became Egypt. Now imagine a young queen, barely in her 20s, trying to hold on to her throne while Rome, the mighty Roman Republic, was growing more powerful by the day. Inside her own palace, there was conflict, betrayal, and enemies. Even her own brother, Ptolemy XIII, was trying to push her out. It was in this storm of danger and uncertainty that Cleopatra first met the Roman general Julius Caesar. Now, here's where the story turns dramatic. Cleopatra was in exile, hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Caesar had arrived in Egypt not to help her, but to settle a debt and support her brother. But Cleopatra had a plan that would make history. One night, she had herself smuggled into Caesar's palace, rolled up in a rug. Yes, a rug! Her servants carried her past the guards, and when the rug was unrolled, there she was, radiant, confident, mysterious. Cleopatra had made her entrance, and it worked. Caesar, decades older, powerful and strategic himself, was fascinated. Some say he fell in love that night. Others say it was politics. But what matters is what happened next. Cleopatra seduced not just the man, but the empire he represented. Together, they became lovers. And through that love, Cleopatra regained her throne. Caesar defeated her brother's forces, and Cleopatra was crowned queen once more, with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, as co-ruler. Though everyone knew who really held the power. But Cleopatra didn't stop there. She gave birth to Caesar's son, Caesarion, the little king, as she called him. She dreamed of a future where her son might rule both Egypt and Rome, a vision of an empire united by blood and love. But Rome was never a place of peace. After Caesar returned to Rome, Cleopatra followed, not as a visitor, but as a queen. She stayed in one of Caesar's estates and tried to gain favor with the Roman people. But Caesar had many enemies, and one day, in 44 BC, he was assassinated, stabbed 23 times by senators who feared he was becoming too powerful. For Cleopatra, it was a devastating loss, not just of a lover, but of an ally, a dream, a future. And now she was alone again. But fate wasn't done with Cleopatra. Rome soon fell into chaos, and 3 men rose to power, forming what was called the Second Triumvirate. One of those men was Mark Antony, a general, a warrior, and a man with a taste for pleasure and politics. Antony summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus, demanding she explain her role during Caesar's reign. Cleopatra, once again, made an entrance no one could forget. She sailed up the Cydnus River on a golden barge, dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Perfumes filled the air, Musicians played soft melodies, and she, lying under a canopy of gold, looked like a dream brought to life. Antony was enchanted. What began as a political meeting turned into a legendary love affair. Unlike her relationship with Caesar, which was built on strategy and alliance, her love for Antony seemed deeper, more passionate. They spent the winter together in Alexandria, throwing extravagant parties, drinking, dancing, laughing. The people called them the inimitable livers because no one could live like they did. But once again, politics waited in the shadows. Antony was married to Octavia, the sister of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and rising star in Rome. The scandal of his affair with Cleopatra shook the Roman world. And when Antony gave away parts of Rome's eastern territories to Cleopatra and her children, Octavian had enough. He declared war not just on Antony, but on Cleopatra herself. In 31 BC, the two lovers faced Octavian in the Battle of Actium, a massive naval confrontation. Cleopatra commanded her own fleet, but despite their courage, they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Cleopatra and Antony fled back to Egypt, their dreams crumbling behind them. Octavian followed. The end came swiftly. As Octavian's forces surrounded Alexandria, Antony received false news that Cleopatra had died. Heartbroken, he fell on his sword, but he didn't die immediately. Instead, bleeding and broken, he was brought to Cleopatra's hiding place. There, in her arms, he breathed his last. Cleopatra, devastated, knew what awaited her. Octavian wanted to parade her through the streets of Rome in chains, a trophy of war. But Cleopatra would not be caged. She dressed in her royal robes, placed a crown upon her head, and took her own life. Some say by poison, others say by the bite of an asp, a venomous snake sacred to Egypt. With her death, the age of the pharaohs ended. Egypt became a Roman province. Caesarion, her son, was captured and killed. And yet, the legend of Cleopatra lived on. Why? Because Cleopatra was more than a queen. She was a symbol of defiance, of intelligence, of feminine power. She ruled in a world of men and outplayed them all, not just with beauty, but with brilliance. She used love, yes, but love was never her weakness. It was her strength. Her relationships with Caesar and Antony were not just romantic, they were revolutionary. She changed the course of empires, and her story still echoes today. For English learners listening to this, let me tell you why this story matters. Cleopatra's tale is not just a history lesson. It's a lesson in courage, in resilience, in how language and love can cross borders and change the world. Her ability to speak multiple languages, to connect with cultures, to influence powerful men, all came from her knowledge, her voice, her mind. Learning English is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about understanding stories like this. Stories that show us how human we are, how deeply we feel, how far we can go. So if you're learning English, don't stop. Every word you learn is a step toward influence, toward understanding the world, just like Cleopatra understood hers. And remember, Cleopatra's story began with danger and uncertainty. But she faced it all with boldness. You can do the same. Before you go, if this story touched you, if you felt the suspense, the heartbreak, the power, then support us. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs a little inspiration. And don't forget to subscribe to Ali Trainings Official, where stories live and learning never ends. We'll bring you more tales of history, of love, of power, all in clear, beautiful English that helps you grow. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep learning, keep dreaming, and like Cleopatra, don't be afraid to write your own story.